We're starting to really dive deep into the winter season here across the Tennessee Valley, but we have already seen our first frost of the winter. For this episode of Emily Explains, I'm going to be talking about all things winter weather. This will be broken up into two parts because I do have a lot to discuss with you. So let's just go ahead and start from the beginning. Like I mentioned, we've already seen our first frost of the winter season, but how exactly does frost form? Well, first and foremost, the sun heats the earth during the day. So the air just above the surface is always going to be a little bit warmer than just below it. So heat rises and the air just above the surface is going to start to cool down a little bit. The cooling then will force the moisture onto the ground, and when we see freezing temperatures, that moisture will freeze, and that's how we get frost formation. So what's the difference in it being on the pavement versus the grass? So during the daytime on the pavement, the dark pavement is going to absorb more heat, whereas if you take things into a grassy perspective, no pavement involved, the grassy surface is going to absorb less heat than the pavement. Now, once we have nighttime coming along, more heat will absorb into the pavement, and the pavement is going to be warmer than the grass. So say around the pavement temperature about 42 degrees. But once you talk about things grassy wise, no pavement involved with this, that's when we're going to see less heat, and the grassy surfaces are going to be much cooler than the pavement surfaces that we usually see here. So road surfaces are going to take longer to reach that freezing temperature of 32, so no frost is going to be involved with that. But as for the grassy surfaces, once the grassy surfaces reach freezing earlier, that's when we're going to see that frost start to form. We also have this thing that we call rime ice. This is when we have a daytime heat that's leaving the ground. We also have to have a clear night with light winds. A thin layer of moisture is going to be underneath the drier air, and the rising air from the surface is then going to quickly pass through a moist layer of the atmosphere. So the moist layer does not absorb much heat, so the air near the surface is going to cool much quicker. And then this is where we get freezing fog. Believe it or not, we do have freezing fog here in the Tennessee Valley. So as the moisture begins to rise, the water is then going to turn into vapor, and it's going to freeze on contact with any surface that is below that freezing temperature of 32 degrees. We also see black ice here more times than we typically will see snowfall, just because we will have some sort of leftover precipitation sometimes on the roadways if we do see rain the day before, but we're not really in that layer to see snow formation, but the roads will freeze a little quicker. So black ice is when we have a very thin layer of ice that accumulates on the pavement. So this is when we have a road temperature of less than 32 degrees. The transparency is going to help the ice blend in with the dark pavement, making it difficult to see. So during the daytime, when we have clear sky, the snow melts, or sometimes we do see rain during the day, and that's going to turn into ice once we reach nightfall. Now, once we have light rain involved with this, the rain falls onto the frozen surface and turns into ice upon contact. That's what we usually see more than the snowfall. And then, of course, believe it or not, fog actually does play some sort of role in black ice. So water droplets will freeze instantly on the surfaces that are below 32 degrees. You always see those signs on the roadways that say that bridges will ice before roadways. So let's talk about that as well. The air temperature going to drop below freezing. The bridge is going to be exposed to the colder air above and below it. And like I mentioned, bridges always ice quicker than the roadways. So once that air starts to drop below freezing, notice how the bridge temperature is going a lot more downward, in a downward direction than our road temperature and the air temperature. So once we have that air temperature dropping below freezing, Like I said, we're going to have that air moving along and below it as well. So the bridge is going to ice quickly more before the roadways. So here's the air versus the surface temperature. The air above the surface usually takes longer to cool down, and the surface will cool first and faster, and that's how we get those frosty conditions to begin. So if we have about a surface temperature of right around 30 to 32 degrees, notice how the air temperature only seeing about 35 to 37 degrees. You also hear us talk about the wind chill. So what exactly is the wind chill? This is when we see that temperature. We also have the wind chill temperature, and once you factor it in with the air temperature, that's how it feels outside. So it's not the actual air temperature, it's just a gauge once you factor in things like wind speed as well. So layer of heat generated by our bodies is what keeps us warm. But once you introduce some windy conditions, the wind is going to push a layer of heat away from our body. So the body heat's going to escape as the wind speeds start to pick up. So here's some safety tips. Limit your time outdoors. Hypothermia and frostbite can occur within minutes. And of course, cover exposed skin if you must go outdoors. Now, you always hear us talk about the 4 P's when it comes to freezing conditions. That's plants, pets, people, and pipes. So we're going to talk about pipe safety because I know that is probably a #1 priority for most of us. So let's say we have temperatures that are right around 20 degrees. That is well below freezing. In fact, probably would warrant a freeze alert. So that's when the cold air could potentially cause the pipes in the exterior walls to freeze because water expands when it's frozen, and then you have that pipe that's going to burst from that as well. So here's some factors to consider along the lines: outside temperature, direct exposure to cold temperatures, and the effectiveness of your wall insulation. Now, of course, we also want to prevent it. So here's some ways. We have a pipe sleeve that can be installed. You want to add insulation to that cold prone areas and add specific products to pipes. I know a lot of us see those outdoor covers as well. For inside purposes, you can open your cabinets to help keep the pipes warm inside of your house. So you want to keep the heat on. And if you're not at home, if you're going to be away for an extended period of time, I know a lot of us like to turn down the heat. And in the winter, we like to turn down the air conditioning as well. So if you're not going to be home, you want to keep your air temperature inside of your house at a minimum of about 55 degrees. And of course, keep those cabinets doors open as well. You want to allow the cold water to drip from your faucets as well inside of your house, so your kitchen sink, your bathroom sinks, areas like that. And then, of course, cover your exposed spigots that you have outdoors. You can remove the drain and store any outdoor hoses away. And like I mentioned earlier, we do have things that are like a spigot covering that you can help to prevent those pipes, those frozen pipes to occur. So once again, you want to remove the drain and store your outdoor hoses. Consider insulation materials for your exposed pipes. Let the cold water drip from the faucet. Open the kitchen and bathroom cabinets and leave your heat no lower than 55 degrees. So once we get into next week's episode of Emily Explains, we're going to be talking about our weather hazards part 2, and that's where I'm going to be talking more in depth about snow, snowfall formation, and the types of winter weather alerts that we potentially could see here in the Tennessee Valley.